You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode. Before we get started on this episode, here's a not so short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster or the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak with a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's courses on Udemy or Skillshare, and you can find out more about those at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. Today we're on episode 218. It's the end of July, so I hope all of you are enjoying your summer, getting ready to wrap up summer pretty much next month. And it's probably hot. I don't know about the rest of you, but I know I'm tired of this heat. But I'm sure I'll be complaining here in a few months about the cold. Actually, I probably won't. I don't mind the cold, but it is warm. It's been record-breaking heat here lately. So anyhow, hope all of you are doing well and enjoying your summer. So today's topic is detoxing properly from toxic mold exposure and mold sickness. So this is a fairly hot topic that I get to deal with quite often. Many of you have listened to the episode we did with Dr. Terry Fox. It was a wonderful episode. I believe it was episode 213 or 214. I can't remember for sure, but it has gotten a lot of listens. I'm getting a lot of feedback from that. So it's a great episode. For those of you that haven't listened to it, go back a few episodes and listen to it. It's a longer episode. Typically these podcasts, I try to stay 15, 20 minutes. But since we had an expert on the medical side of things, we dedicated about an hour. So it's a lot longer than our normal ones. But anyhow, it's something that's interesting when it comes to mold sickness and mold exposure. Obviously, you have to be exposed to it somewhere. And so that's why it's really important to have the doctor side of things. And then, of course, what I do, our blue collar side of things. And it's important that we do work hand in hand. You can't, or you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. You shouldn't go, through the whole regimen with your doctor and detox without figuring out what caused it. And a good doctor is going to put you down the path of, hey, we got to figure out what's making you sick. So I guess my point is you've got to work hand in hand with a doctor and then someone like myself. You can't, in my opinion, you can't really heal properly if you don't remove yourself from that moldy environment. Whether that's work, home, could be school, could be many places. And sometimes it's a bit difficult to figure that out, but there are places like your home and your workplace that you can typically rule out, and you should. So anyhow, I'll do my best to explain my side of things. I'm not going to get too much into the medical side, but it is a lot of the medical side is very important when it comes to detoxing from mold. So the first question is how do you know if you're experiencing mold toxicity or mold sickness? You need to go see a doctor, and the doctor can do mycotoxin testing. And if I recall right, Dr. Fox, one of her labs that she likes to use is Vibrant Labs. And so you need to be tested. The testing is obviously important, but when it comes to our side of things, as far as the building side, or what I call the blue collar side of things, mycotoxin testing to me is not that important. It's PCR testing. We talked about that last week or a couple weeks ago. And DNA-based testing, that's like the ERMI test. There's different types of PCR tests, but it's a DNA-based test. And I just don't feel that in what I specialize in and what my end goal is, that it's important to do that. I think an inspection of your property and a gathering of information, previous exposures, previous mold toxicity concerns, Lyme's disease, all those things like that. That to me is more important than just running tests. And even air tests that we do, I don't always think that that's just the way to go. So anyhow, you want to go to your doctor and do mycotoxin testing, follow their directions as far as, what types of testing, whether it's a urine test, whether it's a blood test, the lab that they send it to. All of those things are very important. And like I said, Dr. Fox did a really good job of explaining that. So I'm not going to go deep into those things. But that brings up the important part is, what about your place of exposure? Like, first and foremost, that's something that's really important. So first off, we want to figure out, where were you exposed to the mold? Second of all, what place is that and how are you going to remedy that? If you don't go down the mold mitigation path, but you're going down the medical side of detoxing, as I said, I don't believe you're going to get the results you're looking for. And I think your doctor is going to probably tell you, hey, you've got to remove yourself from the moldy environment. And that's the key thing right there. Remove yourself from that moldy environment. And I understand it's not possible for all of you to just up and move. But I used to say it a lot. Haven't said it much lately, but what is your health worth? You have to take a look at that and say, hey, do I have friends that I can go live with, family members? Can we afford a hotel for a few weeks? You can get companies in there, and I'm speaking for CNC Contractor Services. We can't always just get in and get out quickly, but we can usually get there in a timely manner, within a week or so, to see what's going on. And then if it does require remediation, once we start that, which it's a process, obviously, to get things set up, make sure we have the proper chemicals for that project, get a container delivered, do whatever we have to set up. I guess my point is we could be in there within a few weeks and be done. Mold remediation shouldn't take months. It shouldn't even, in my opinion, take weeks, unless it's major gutting a whole property, and there's a lot of things involved. We deal with a lot of pretty nasty mold jobs, and they still don't take us months. They don't even take us weeks. It's usually a week or two. And I guess my point is if the excuse is, well, we can't really go somewhere for a month, I get that, but you should be able to find a company that can have everything taken care of, within a month. So if you don't address the property, I'm sure your doctor's going to give you a lecture about that, but to me, that's very important. We just talked about Dr. Fox. A lot of people ask me, what type of doctor do I go to? There's Schumacher certified doctors. There's Dr. Fox. She is a member of ICI, and that's spelled ISEAI. It's called ICI. And that's an organization with a lot of medical professionals that are mold literate. And going back to like Schumacher, he does certifications. There's different doctors out there, Dr. Jill. There's a variety of them out there, and I'm not going to promote one over the other. Of course, Dr. Fox has been kind enough to come on to our podcast, so I will mention her. She's based out of Boulder, Colorado. As she explained when we did the episode, typically you're going to have to fly in and see her initially, but they have other options. And so you can reach out to her office. She has another doctor she works with that is mold literate also. But anyhow, it's very important to find a doctor that believes it is mold toxicity and they have knowledge and expertise in that. We all have to start somewhere. I get that. I didn't just all of a sudden become some mold specialist. I went through the construction ranks and home inspectors and, radon testing and things like that. And so I get it. You're not, it's not as easy to find a doctor that has the knowledge that maybe you're looking for when it comes to detoxing from mold. But on the other hand, it's very important that you find somebody that is experienced. I, for myself, things that I've dealt with medically, I know there are some doctors that I run into and I'm like, man, I wish I would have known about you years ago, because this, and this took, months, if not years, to figure out. And if you're really sick from mold, this isn't something you want to try to have trial and error and go, well, let's try this person. I don't know if they're qualified, but maybe they can help. You want a doctor that really knows what they're doing. And typically, it's a holistic or functional medicine doctor. And like I said, just do your research on them and make sure that they know what they're doing. So here's the part I'm sure all of you are wanting to know, like, okay, so we get it, Steve. We got to take care of the home that we're being exposed in, and we need the right doctor. So what do you do to actually detox from mold? Well, that protocol obviously is going to be set up by your doctor, and all doctors obviously are going to operate a little bit differently, but one thing that I know is very important, and Dr. Fox talked about it, is binders. Binders are things like charcoal or clay. You can take those and it will attract the mycotoxins to whatever you're taking. That's why it's called a binder. And then it'll expel them out of your body, whether it's in your feces or if it's urine. That part, obviously, that's more the medical side. There are prescribed things that they can give you. I don't know the names of those, but I know that there are prescribed medications, antifungals that they can give you. I know a lot of those, they don't want to put you on them for too long. There are nasal sprays that you can use. There's all sorts of different things that you can take, and I would highly recommend that you do it with the recommendation of a doctor. I know Google, and we have ChatGPT, AI stuff that is really helpful when it comes to lots of things, but when you're trying to treat your body from mold toxicity, it's something I would have a professional giving you direction to do. Now, there's other things too that you can do to detox. You can use a sauna. I know everybody doesn't have access to run to a gym or big sauna to go sit in and sweat it out. There's also personal saunas you can buy online. They're small, they're compact. Those work very well. A lot of things, too, your doctor's going to talk to you about. When you're trying to detox from mold, there are certain foods you don't want to eat. Foods that have yeast in them are probably not a good idea. So, a lot of things like bread is probably not a good idea. Also, grains and stuff like that are probably something that you want to steer clear of for a little while, just until you can get healed properly from the mold sickness. So, I kind of went over a few of those things that you can take, you can use. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to cover too deeply into the medical side of it. But I want to be clear, though, that we have to focus on, just like you're trying to expel all those mycotoxins out of your body, we want to expel all those mycotoxins from your home. And in order for us to do that, you can't just go in and fog or spray, or, I see a lot of people that say, oh yeah, use Decon 30 or use Benefect wipes or use tea tree oil. Like I hear a lot of things, and those might be great for small steps as far as the mitigation process, but you really need to get a professional involved. And you can rent, like air scrubbers that we use, you can rent those. I know Home Depot rents them, and it's not cheap, but it's probably better than buying them. But you do need things like, in my opinion, an ozone machine, air scrubbers, things like that. So be careful when you're detoxing from mold on the medical side, that you're doing everything properly on the building side of things. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to keep fighting this, and it's going to keep coming back, and it's not going to work out well for you. I know I kind of went through a lot of things quickly. Once again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to dive deep into the medical side. As all of you know in our disclaimer before this episode, we're not giving you medical advice. So make sure you do go to a doctor, and make sure you have a reputable doctor. So what's my call to action? make sure you go to a doctor. Don't go to Dr. Google. Dr. Google's not always going to be the best thing for you. Social media is not the best place to go to have people tell you what to take. I understand that things can get expensive, but I have clients that have had to do whatever they have to do to detox from mold. And I know, as terrible as it sounds, if you're sitting there and you're going, yeah, Steve, you don't understand. I don't have the money. My money's so tight, I can't do it. I understand it. But at the end of the day, you can't just try to do this by yourself, because if you want to be Dr. Steve and have Dr. Steve do it, that's probably not the best course of action. And in the long run, it probably could be, you could make things worse. It's no different than mold mitigation. When DIYers do it, sometimes they just make it worse. They go in there, they spray chemicals, which is not healthy to breathe. Spraying those chemicals could force those molds to release the mycotoxins. So at the end of the day, just get the proper doctor involved for mold detox. Also, I've talked about it quite often on Udemy. I used to call it Udemy, but it's pronounced Udemy. I have a free course on Udemy that is called Is Toxic Mold Making Me Sick? That has been free since I launched it several years ago, and I have no intentions of making that a paid course. So it's a free course that you can take. There's no catches to it. Something that I feel is important for people to be able to go and have a resource that explains if toxic mold is making you sick. So anyhow, I appreciate all of you listening. As I said, we're at the end of July. I hope all of you are enjoying your summer. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you go to our website at cnccontractorservices.com and sign up for the mold investigation checklist. Again, go to cnccontractorservices.com and get your free mold investigation checklist today. You can also, on cnccontractorservices.com, find out more about Steve's courses and books and consultations. Once again, go to cnccontractorservices.com.